Okay, so this is number 3 here. A team of researchers is testing the effectiveness of a new HPV vaccine. They randomly divide the subjects into 2 groups, right? This is how we do an experiment, right? This is all about an experiment. Experiment, you randomly break them into 2 groups. That's how you find statistical evidence. You can't just do an observation. Otherwise, you'll make the mistake of the ice cream and the drowning. Group 1 receives the new vaccine, and group 2 receives a placebo. All right, do you remember what a placebo is? That's fake drug. It's just a sugar pill, right? That why do they give people a placebo, a fake? They give them a pill and say you're getting the real drug, but it's not really the real drug. It's just a harmless sugar pill. Why do they do that? Why don't they just tell the second group you're not getting anything?
Is it to see the effects that they like, how they are supposedly affected by the drug, but nothing happens, just to see
Yeah.
like they have a reaction.
Yeah, it's because we're so mental. We really are, right? There's been all kinds of scientific studies in the last 50 years that have shown how much our minds affect our bodies. And so, yeah, when they're testing something like a new drug, like they're testing the COVID vaccine right now, they want to make sure that it's really the drug that's having the physical effect on the body and not just our minds. I mean, that's great when our minds heal us, and our minds often do, but that doesn't mean the drug is working, right? They're trying to figure out, is the drug really doing something physical to us, or is it all just mental? And so how they figure that out is they have the second group get a fake sugar pill. They tell the second group, they lie to them. They say, you're getting the real drug when they're not. That way they can rule out the mental effect. Both groups think they're getting the real drug. So both groups' minds are involved in healing their bodies, but group 1 is also physically getting the real drug. So if there's a difference in the end, we know it's a physical difference caused by the drug and not just a mental difference, since both groups think they're getting the real drug. That's why we do that. That's important. All right, so which is the treatment group? Well, that's the group getting the actual treatment. So that's group 1. That's the group that receives the treatment. The actual drug we're testing receives the drug, the treatment. We call that the treatment group. Which group is the control group? That's the other group. That's group 2. The control group does not get the actual drug, the treatment. And why we call them the control group? Because they help us control the experiment. They help us make sure that it's not something else that's getting in there and causing the difference. They give us control of the experiment. So we have to have what, that's why I'm saying all these observational studies you see in the news all the time, they're baloney, because they don't have an experiment, and they're not an experiment because they don't have a treatment group and a control group. You have to have a treatment group and a control group. If you want to really see a difference between 2 things, you have to have 2 separate random groups, and one group gets the drug or the tutoring or the whatever, and the other group doesn't. And then you look for differences. All right, is this study blind, double blind, or neither? What are we talking about here?
It's double blind because neither the patients or the doctors know.
Well said. Yeah. Did you guys see the sentence that Rosalinda's noticing up here? Right there. I kind of wrote over the top of it. There we go. Yeah. Neither the patients nor the doctors examining them knew. So this is double blind. Patients don't know. They don't know if they are receiving the actual drug treatment or not. So the patients don't know. Also, the doctors don't know. Now, so that's double blind. Sometimes they'll let the doctors know and not the patients, and that'll just be a blind experiment. So blind would be if blind would be only the patients don't know, but the doctors do know. That would be a blind experiment, but in our case, we have a double blind because the patients don't know and also the doctors don't know. Now, why would they have the doctors not know? Why does that matter? Why would they do that? Well, it's because some things that they test are kind of a judgment call. Back when the biggest, most famous case in United States history of using this was when they got rid of polio, the polio vaccine. Dr. Salk, the Salk vaccine. He became world famous, and for eliminating polio used to be bad news. Lots of kids would get paralyzed and die from it every year. It was a big problem, and it's pretty much been wiped out in all industrialized nations. It almost is gone completely now because the polio vaccine. And how they tested it was kind of a judgment call. When they did the big gigantic test, I can't remember when it was. You could type into Google and find out in the 20s or the 30s, 40s, 50s. I don't remember. I'm a little blurry on history there. But when they did it, they gave it to zillion's not even a number. They gave it to hundreds of thousands. It was a gigantic nationwide experiment. They gave it to tons of kids, had two separate groups. One group got the actual polio vaccine shot. The other group just got a shot of water, the fake, because they wanted to figure out, which one, if the vaccine was really working, or if it's just mental. And they didn't even tell the doctors. Now, there were some administrators over the whole experiment, and they knew which kids were getting the real deal and which kids were not. But the doctors giving the shots and examining the patients 1 week later, a month later, 6 months later, didn't know which kids got the real vaccine and which ones didn't. Why not? Because it was kind of a judgment call. The doctors would look at the patients and they would try to judge whether they were beginning to get polio or not. And it wasn't 100%, it wasn't an all or nothing. It was kind of hard to tell. That it was, like I said, a judgment call. So they didn't want the doctors to have in their mind, oh, I know this is a kid who got the vaccine. So that would kind of prejudice their judgment, So they wanted to get rid of all that to get right to the pure truth. So the doctors didn't even know which kids got the real deal and which kids got the fake deal. So as the doctors examined people and said, yeah, this kid's starting to get polio, this one's not, they had no clue who got the vaccine, who didn't. The kids didn't know, the doctors didn't know, just the administrators over the whole thing knew, and it was a smashing success. And like I said, we have pretty much wiped out polio in all industrialized nations. It wasn't a smashing success. There was like 7 or 8 kids that died because they happened to be assigned to the group that got the fake, and they got polio and they died. It was a little sad, but it's part of what we had to do to figure out the vaccine. All right. Anyway, let's move on. So let's describe this situation. Which best describes this research? Is it a controlled experiment or a survey? It is a controlled experiment. So this is, again, what an experiment is, not a survey. A survey would be observational. Here again, we're seeing that difference. So there we go.